What's up? What's up? Hello, I'm Brandon David. This is Investing in Cannabis. This is the show where we talk about what else? Cannabis. We talk about early stage founders, sometimes a little later stage founders, sometimes people doing really awesome things, some people just getting started. We talk to investors, what they're looking for in the industry, what do they want to see built in the world, what are they writing checks for? If you're a fan of the show, if you watch the show, we talk about all the different ways you can consume cannabis, right? There's the oils, there's the waxes, there's the traditional flowers, which most people have the stereotype in their head of, oh, I'm going to roll a joint and smoke flowers. But I just read a crazy fact that more than 50% of cannabis, legal cannabis purchased, is non-smokable. Let me say this again. This is crazy. I'm a decade-long smoker. I love flowers. I'm even a little reluctant to even get into the vape pens of the world. More than 50% of products, cannabis products purchased legally, are non-smokable. That means they were edibles, they were chocolate, they were liquids, they were gums, whatever, many, many different ways that you can consume cannabis. And today we have Tripp Keber, who's CEO of Dixie Brands, really like the godfather of this edible shit, right? Which is awesome. What's up, Tripp? Thanks for being here, man.
Brandon, good afternoon. We in the business call it the infused product sector.
Excuse me.
That's
all
right. That is the overarching category.
Yes,
it's an honor.
Infused product.
Yeah. Thank you for having us today. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you for being here. You've been everywhere, so we are honored to have you here today. First question for you is, why don't people want to smoke their weed anymore?
Well, it's interesting. It's a fascinating phenomenon. I think you're exactly right. I mean, the statistics show in the state of Colorado last year, over 45% of a $700 million industry, according to the Department of Revenue, was captured by the infused product sector. If you look back at 2010, when I founded our company, Dixie, Elixirs and Edibles, it was probably 5%, maybe 8% of a $60, $70 million industry. So we're dealing with hyper growth, and I would suggest in Colorado this year alone, which we're going to get close to about $1 billion in sales as an industry, we'll certainly hit that tipping point. So more than 50%, as you point out, Brandon, will be consumed through the infused product sector. So a really exciting time for us as a company.
And why do you think that's so appealing to people?
Well, I mean, to answer your question succinctly, I think that people understand that smoking anything, even if it's perceived as medicine, understand that can be dangerous. And so certainly if you're talking about medical cannabis, like here we have in the state of California, how can you ask a patient that is suffering from say lung cancer to embrace cannabis as a medicinal product through maybe a marijuana cigarette? So it's really not sustainable in my opinion. But then you look at a state like Colorado, which is a very active, healthy lifestyle community, and I think you've got a great recipe for opportunity when you're in the infused product sector.
Yeah. And when did you kind of have this like ding light bulb moment of like, hey, we could create a company of infused products and take advantage of this trend?
Well, it's ironic because I was really working for the evil empire. I was in the alcohol distribution business.
Okay.
I owned bars and nightclubs, and it was very consistent in 2008, 2009, where people were consuming cannabis outside of the clubs that either I frequented or owned. And it's been widely reported, but I had that epiphanal moment when I asked an active law enforcement officer who was out moonlighting for one of our clubs to encourage people who were smoking cannabis outside of my nightclub to get back into the club. Generally, it's widely known that people who embrace marijuana generally drink alcohol less, which I think is overall a positive thing. Mm-hmm. And I was informed in that very moment that we had legalized medical marijuana, and really the Cole Memorandum was accelerating that. And from that point forward, I went into a deep dive on really understanding the competitive landscape, and ultimately ended up with Dixie.
And what was that competitive landscape then?
Well, it wasn't very deep. I would suggest it was broad. There was three things that I knew. Number one, I didn't have the professional expertise to cultivate this powerful plant. I mean, it is called weed for a reason, maybe because it grows like that. But to grow good quality cannabis, Brandon, I think it takes an incredible skill set, and candidly one that I did not possess. Secondly, how do you market to a demographic that is that of a 23-year-old lift operator, maybe in Breckenridge, Colorado, who's maybe wearing his hat on sideways and has chronic pain, which represented about 75% of the qualifying conditions under the medical marijuana registry in Colorado, to that of a 70-year-old grandmother, right, who's truly suffering from glaucoma. I just didn't have the professional expertise to really market to that demographic. And so ultimately we determined that it was probably best suited to create a product that would allow us to medicate the masses, and that's ultimately how Dixie Elixirs, the media like to refer to it as a pot soda, which still to this day drives me nuts, but it did give us our start. And today we have.
Why does that drive you so crazy?
Well, first of all, I don't use the term pot. I mean, maybe I think cannabis, we have to pay incredible respect to this powerful plant, Cannabis sativa. But marijuana or cannabis, in my humble opinion, I was taught by some instrumental people in this industry. Just recently, I was this morning at Harborside Health, who I would give a tremendous amount of credit to both Andrew and Steve for really helping me understand, because I didn't have a very strong relationship with marijuana, if you will. And today, like our own president, I understand that marijuana is less harmful than alcohol. I'm trying to embrace more marijuana and less alcohol. I'm 47 years old. I'm not as sprightly as I used to be. But, listen, there's a massive opportunity, whether it be medical marijuana like we have here in the state of California, or now 5 states, including the District of Columbia, that offer recreational, what we call adult use.
Yep.
It's a big, big opportunity.
And what was your experience with cannabis when you're kind of having this epiphany? I mean,
little to none. And I say that sheepishly. I mean, I'm willing to admit that I did not get into this business, Brandon, initially to really help people, and I'm embarrassed by that, because I just didn't have a broad knowledge of how powerful this plant was. But literally, in less than 6 months, I really understood through feedback, literally calls, texts, emails from people saying, at bare minimum, thank you for creating a level of wellness that we couldn't necessarily achieve through alcohol or opiates or tobacco products, including, curing from A to Z in illness, all the way up to, listen, your products have subsequently saved my life. I can't make those statements, Brandon. I'm not a medical doctor, but we're hearing that more and more these days. Our own Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who has quite a broad audience, who I would argue has done as much for marijuana reform as anybody in the last 4
those
years.
2 specials are so compelling.
Yeah. He has a third one that is recently aired, which is all about cannabis
third one.
PTSD.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
and so we're really seeing that pay massive benefit to society, in our humble opinion.
Got it. But you got into it for the money.
I did initially, and boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who are invested in the marijuana space initially think that it's the green rush, and that we're going to get rich overnight. I mean, the wheels of cannabis turn very, very slow, Brandon. But when that gear kicks in, like we're going to see here in the state of California, it's incredibly exciting. I think Dixie Brands is going to be well positioned to take full advantage of that. And so I think you're starting to see companies, many, many companies that are well deserving of it, really starting to prosper and or profit.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense. So you're in California now, or limited in California?
No, we're fully operational. We launched our brand, Dixie Brands, and the various brands associated under the parent company, with a spectacular partner, Indus Holdings. They own their own brand called Altai, which is a Chinese princess that was discovered with cannabis, dating back about 3,000 years.
Cool.
So they got a neat story. Tonight we're hosting a fabulous bud tender event in the city of San Francisco, so I'm honored to be here. But we've built a beautiful, beautiful manufacturing facility in just north of Monterey, so just south of the city, and it's really committed to GMP, good manufacturing processes. So all we've learned in the state of Colorado through having a completely regulatory environment framework really to embrace, we're bringing to California alongside many other solid manufacturers, and I think all of that's going to be beneficial to the end user, whether you be a medical marijuana patient today or potentially an adult use consumer as early as next year.
And what are some of the issues in expanding in California, specifically in this state?
Well, up until last Friday, the biggest issue was that there was no regulatory framework, and I believe that your governor is going to sign the bills into law as early as this Friday. Incredibly exciting. That will be a watershed moment. You've got 34+ million people in the state of California. That is the proverbial Glenn Ross leads, if you're familiar with that film.
Yeah, I am.
And so we're really excited about what that means for us as a manufacturer, but also, candidly, for what it represents for the state, because the state is going to generate hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. This year alone, in the state of Colorado, we're likely to realize just under $100 million. Last year we did about 76 million as a state, if you will. Again, direct to the coffers. I mean, marijuana exists on every street corner in America, and rarely has it been taxed, certainly not for the last 80+ years. So really excited, as what that means for
and in Colorado, that's not accounting for the saved money on not enforcing illegal marijuana, right? I mean, has anyone tried to quantify that?
Yeah, I think there's a Harvard economist. He's a macroeconomist, Jeffrey I'm drawing a blank, Jeffrey Miram, M-I-R-A-M, that has done some amazing studies. I think the state of California has spent well in excess of a couple of $1 billion on the federal interdiction of marijuana alone. And so all that savings that we potentially can put towards the bottom line, all the while attributing real tax dollars. And then think of the socioeconomic costs about incarcerating predominantly disproportionate men of color, Hispanics and African Americans, in these state-run prisons, federal prisons even, for the nonviolent drug offense of possession. And so we're really excited as to what that means, as an industry and ultimately for a state's economy and potentially a nation's economy. I think you're starting to see a real tipping point, if you will.
Got it. So you just opened up this factory in Monterey. Is it open or it's about to be open?
Fully operational.
Fully operational. Congratulations.
We visited many dispensaries, including Harborside Health, that has distributed our products.